Haha, found you! Boy oh boy, being a detective sure is fun, but finding missing peeps is starting to get a little too easy for me, so I think I'm gonna have to step my game up a little bit on my next case and solve a bigger mystery, cause, let me tell you, it doesn't get much smaller than my last case. You know what, it kinda feels like all the good mysteries were already solved, so to be honest, I've got no idea where to begin. Oh, I guess I could just wait for the next big case to come in. What was it that Sherlock Holmes always did to kill time? Oh, I wonder who that might be. Come in! Oh my god, it's the ghost of, Who are you? I'm the Wii U! Nintendo's console between the Wii and the Switch. Oh yeah. Well, what are you doing here? You need me to find a missing person with the initials PP? Cause I'm starting to get a little tired of these calls. No, I need you to catch my murderer! Well, it says right here you got into a fight with the Xbox One and PS4, so I don't know. No! I was killed by my little brother, the Nintendo 3DS, and I need you to prove it! Oh! I mean, this issue's kind of been dead for years at this point, so I'm not gonna get a whole lot of notoriety for it as a detective or anything like that, but... Ah, what the hell. You're in luck, Mr. U, because there's no case too big, no case too small. So when you need help, just call.
Cameron, there's danger. And I know it never fails once he's involved. Somehow, whatever's wrong gets solved. Cameron, oh one word. Cameron, there's danger. Oh no, it never fails. He'll take the clues and find the where's and why's and who's. Cameron, oh one word. Cameron, there's danger. Cameron.
Okay, so even though it might seem like the easiest way to explain the Wii U's failure would be to point fingers at the PS4 and Xbox One, I actually think there's a lot more to it than that. I mean, yeah, those two consoles existing at the same time as the Wii U didn't exactly do it any favors or anything like that, but I really do think that they were the least of its problems. Most people seem to agree that the Wii U could have put up a better fight had Nintendo made it more powerful, dropped the gamepad gimmick, and most importantly, marketed it better though. In fact, these seem to be the next biggest culprits in the console's murder, but I'm 100% convinced that the Wii U would have still been a success while dealing with every single one of these factors had it not been for the 3DS. Sure, the PS4 and Xbox One were stiff competition, but they still didn't have Nintendo's exclusive IPs that a lot of people feel like they need in their lives, whereas the 3DS, on the other hand, had more of that than the Wii U ever ended up getting, and for a cheaper price with portability, no less. I mean, Nintendo's portables have always been more successful than their home console counterparts in the past without ever killing them, but one of the main reasons for that's because handhelds have always been more personal and, well, you know, cheaper, so it wasn't that uncommon for households to have more than one of them. And let's not forget about all those dumbass little kids who'd end up losing them, which obviously boosted the sales numbers even more on top of that. All the same stuff's still true for the 3DS, but the difference is that before this point, having the ability to take games with you wherever you wanted came with some trade-offs. And while there have been some great original Game Boy and DS titles, most of them were usually just watered-down experiences compared to their console counterparts. So Game Boy Advance, and DS were never really able to kill or even hurt the NES, Super Nintendo, 64, GameCube, or Wii. The 3DS, on the other hand, offered the exact same kinds of games as the Wii U from the exact same franchises while being cheaper, portable, and more or less just as good in terms of pure quality. Don't get me wrong, games definitely look more impressive on the Wii U, but the 3DS came out after Game & reached the everything looks fine milestone, so with all the other advantages it had, the graphics really weren't holding it back all that much. I mean, sure, Luigi's Mansion Dark Moon would have looked better on the Wii U, but if this game originally came out on the Wii U with no changes outside of the graphics, then would anybody really have considered it a watered-down experience? Hell, Capcom even ported Resident Evil Revelations to home consoles and no one seemed to care, but could you imagine the uproar if Capcom had put a game like Resident Evil Gaiden on the Nintendo 64 the way it was? This is why Nintendo's handhelds were never able to kill any of the home consoles in the past. They just weren't capable of doing so. Even when the PS1 and 2 were completely milking the 64 and GameCube, Nintendo's big first-party IPs made it impossible for Sony to deliver a finishing blow or even keep an N-Dog from being profitable. I mean, back then, the handhelds were actually able to supplement the console's efforts rather than hinder or compete with them. Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask are great 3D Zelda games, but Oracle Ages and Seasons are great 2D Zelda games that offer something completely different, which gave you a reason to buy both platforms. But even though the Game Boy definitely had some great games, the home consoles were still considered the premium experience at the time. However, when the Wii U launched, was there really any reason to spend $350 on one just so you could play New Super Mario Bros. U? And I actually liked that game a lot more than most people did, but you could spend half the money for New Super Mario Bros. 2 on the 3DS and be able to take it with you on the go. Don't get me wrong, launching a brand new home console in 2012 with just about nothing besides a 2D Mario game definitely wasn't the 3DS's fault, but if the games that come out later on would have been unique Nintendo experiences that the 3DS couldn't handle, then I still think that the Wii U could have rebounded just fine. Instead, we got an experience like Super Mario 3D World that the 3DS pretty much already had in Super Mario 3D Land. Mario Kart 8 would eventually be the best-selling game on the Wii U, and it actually did move some hardware and breathe a little life into the damn thing, but even the best-selling game was something that it wasn't really that much better than what you could already play on the 3DS, and even then, it took over a year for the Wii U to even get this. Hell, even Smash Bros. 4 was a game that was being developed for both platforms at the exact same time, because both were capable of doing the exact same thing. And you'd think that at the absolute least, Nintendo would let the struggling console get first dibs on this killer app to give it some sort of a breather, but the 3DS actually got it a few months earlier, killing any chance that the Wii U might have had at any sort of a revival. The Wii U tried Paper Mario Color Splash, but the 3DS already had Sticker Star. The Wii U offered Wind Waker and Twilight Princess HD, but the 3DS offered Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask 3D. The Wii U gave us Yoshi's Woolly World, but the 3DS had Yoshi's New Island. And then eventually Woolly's World with a bunch of extras added to it. Why did the 3DS have to bully this thing so hard? Just about everything the Wii U tried, the 3DS had already done, and yeah, the Wii U versions of these games were always clearly better, but only by like 20%, because outside of the visuals, they were pretty much the exact same games. So unless you thought 8-player Smash was worth spending an extra 200 bones for, most people were completely happy with the portable versions at half the price with Street Pass and, you know, optional 3D never hurt either, I guess. In fact, not only did people not want to buy a new home console for Smash Bros, but a lot of them actually bought another 3DS when the newer models came out around the same time instead. Most of the people who bought Smash on the Wii U were probably the 3 or 4 people who already had the console in the first place, but if you had the 3DS, then you absolutely didn't need to buy an entirely new console for both versions. Hell, you could even use the 3DS as a controller with the Wii U version at tournaments if you really wanted to. Sure, you couldn't use the GameCube controller with the 3DS version, but it was still $300 cheaper. To be fair though, the Wii U did have some games that offered experiences you couldn't get on the 3DS, like Pikmin 3 and Splatoon, which were great and all that, but the 3DS still had way more Nintendo franchises to offer that the Wii U never ended up getting, like 4 Fire Emblem games, Mario & Luigi, Kid Icarus, and obviously friggin' Pokemon, unless you were one of the 5 people who couldn't tell the difference between Pokken Tournament and the core games anyway. And as if the 3DS's first-party offerings didn't blow the Wii U out of the water enough, the difference between the third-party games was just plain brutal. A lot of people blame the Wii U's failure on the lack of third-party games, but the third-party games will come to Nintendo consoles if the hardware sales are there, and for Nintendo to sell hardware, they need first-party games to work their magic. And, well, the Wii U just didn't have enough magic, which is why the 3DS had this, and the Wii U had this. After the Wii U died, the 3DS still kept coming out with more games, and even Nintendo ported some Wii U games over just to salvage their efforts, which further proved that it made absolutely no sense for Nintendo to have 2 separate consoles out at the same time competing with each other in the first place. Everyone likes to blame all those other factors on the Wii U's death, but if the 3DS never came out and the Wii U got all of its games with nothing added outside of some slightly enhanced visuals, then I have zero doubts that the console would have done just fine. In fact, I dare say that it would have even thrived alongside the likes of the PS4 and Xbox. In the end, I think it's safe to say that Nintendo realized this as well, which is why the Switch ended up being a hybrid that ended the idea of splitting first-party development between 2 different platforms now that they were competing with each other on a more level playing field. The idea that the Wii U failed because it wasn't as powerful as the PS4 and Xbox was proven false after the Switch was able to do more than hold its own alongside the exact same consoles, even during a time when the install base for them was higher than when the Wii U competed against them. Hell, even the PS5 and Series X didn't end up killing the Switch, and the reason for that's because Nintendo offers something that Sony and Microsoft just don't have. Obviously, you could say the exact same thing the other way around too, though. Nintendo can never kill those companies with just its first-party titles alone, either. But the point I'm trying to make is that while it is always nice when Nintendo gets third-party games, the only thing that could actually kill a Nintendo console is another Nintendo console, which is exactly how the Wii U was murdered, by Nintendo's own 3DS starving it to death. Well, as it turns out, Mr. Ghost of Wii U over there was right all along. The 3DS did in fact kill him, but I mean, what do you want me to do about it now? The thing died in 2020. Oh, well, damn, how did that happen? Did the Switch kill it? No, it actually started to, but then there was this whole wacky global pandemic thingy that went on that made it really hard to manufacture new hardware, and Nintendo just kind of decided the 3DS wasn't worth manufacturing anymore, so I guess you can consider it a COVID death if you think about it. How am I supposed to get out of purgatory then? I don't know, pray? Nah, I'd rather not. I guess I'll just go and hang out with your Persona Q cartridge or something. Alright, well, have fun. Yeah, or, you know, maybe I could just go on and, Bye!